I don't think private audits were even that big around the time I was looking. I was considering jumping into Web3 full
What?
time
When was that?
last year. It was last year around September, October.
Mm.
I started considering coming into Web3 full time, and it was pretty much just like I almost thought working at a firm was my only option. I didn't even consider private audits or anything like that. And the other guys who are pretty good at private audits now, they sort of got started around the beginning of 2023, I think, and that's when everything really kicked
Yeah.
off.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the more visible side. To me, there's basically let's call it a unknown side of OGs, like people that you wouldn't even know the name of most of these people, but they've been doing private audits since forever. It's just that the meta has changed now with more visibility because you have your own strategy of doing the pod, other strategy of being on Twitter, other strategy of being on leaderboards. It basically forced everybody else to adapt. Where you like, I'm sure there's still let's say the Samsung of the world where you barely know what they do, but you just know that they're getting a ton of engagements, even though
Mm.
they don't need to advertise them. And so I think that's the main difference now is many people see a direct path where maybe it's part of the course, like there's the hacking course. Maybe they literally just tell you go on Twitter, post your results, and just put your GitHub or whatever. But you can definitely see that as everybody starts doing it, it's kind of become like a almost a roadmap or like a game plan. It's a
Mm.
very clear path to launching your own career, which I think in a way is, I mean, it's just something you could do as I guess as you get good. So it's very like I find it interesting. It's like it's very easy for you to basically copy paste the process that people will take, but you would still not get the same results because the process that you see superficially is not, it's only what you see. Just like when you see like a magician, you can see what trick they're doing, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna be good at doing it. So I feel like that's what's happening now. Everybody knows what you should be doing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is gonna be as good as doing it or as getting those results.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I actually listened to your podcast with Hake on Proof of Podcast, and you mentioned a lot about people doing things privately, and you have really no idea what they're doing, but privately they're generating a lot of business, similar to what you were doing before on Code Mentor, I believe.
Yeah, I like, you want to really think about how this industry has evolved, and we got this recent announcement of truffle being deprecated, and we see basically everybody was shitting on everything that wasn't Foundry, and now everybody's like saluting truffle, which is it's just I guess it's just how you get some likes on Twitter or whatever. But the reality is, what's happening now is like if you go and look at consensus or you look at Ethereum as like the community of people that have a reason to push the community forward, um, those people had a very obvious reason. They bought Ethereum at like what was it, 50 cents or something, and so they had a very clear reason to help secure the network, help make sure everybody was able to use it, etc. And so now we're almost like in a, let's call it a second generation, due to the boom and bust of various ICOs, where there's people that don't necessarily have the same incentive. They just see the opportunity, and they're basically drawn to it. Both, through the, like, most people will come for the easy money. They're gonna get destroyed, and then they're gonna remain for the intellectual challenge. I guess that's a realistic path. And I guess in terms of getting business privately, I think the simplest example will be if you found, let's say you found some cross-site scripting or some vulnerability on a site, you will just refer to them privately, and then that's how you get your social proof, your demonstration of your skill, and then you would just market your services normally. So the idea that you need to make flashbang to sell a one-on-one service is just it's not that it's wrong. You're simply doing too much work for something that is a lot easier. It can be a lot simpler than that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is that the approach that you went with when you were trying to get clients when you were working at as an independent sort of freelancer at Code Mentor?
Yeah, it's interesting because I guess I'm gonna just explain like my work forever. No, let's say work from anywhere, make good money type approach. I'm not gonna tell how much money you can make, but you can make a living from anywhere in the world. And so my strategy was that I will go on a place that will stimulate me, such as Code Mentor, where there's people that have problems, so that I can have kind of a gauge of the issues in the market, which could be, I don't know, there's a WordPress plugin that is deprecated and everybody needs to update it, or there's this new way of using React Saga, Redux Saga. People got stuck on that stuff a lot. And so what I will do is I will help people directly, and on Code Mentor they pay you by the minute, so it's really awesome. You have a chat like this one, there's a timer, and you just see your payout grow. So it's a really great feedback loop. And obviously, if you can't help them, you're going to refund them. So that also teaches you about not scamming people and kind of understanding whether you can actually help or not. So it's really helpful on that level as well. And then what I will do as the second side is, after I help enough people on the same topic, and that topic was like a WordPress slide or like ultimate slide or something like that, I would just make a video course and I will put it either on YouTube or on Udemy, so that now I basically recycle the same notes and the same content in a way to kind of create my business. And that goes back to the idea that you don't need to promote your skill to sell it, because I was basically doing the pyramid starting from the top, where I'm just selling my service first and then I'm doing the content after. You don't need to do the content before, because maybe people don't care about it. And so that's why I have that opinion. And that was kind of what I was doing. If I didn't get particularly interested in Ethereum, I would probably be making JavaScript courses, the Next.js course, the e-commerce course, the TypeScript course, that type of stuff, because you teach it every day, people need help every day, and so you actually get the very good feedback, and then you just package that knowledge that you actually have gained through helping people, and so that it's good knowledge. You didn't just make it up, make the syllabus randomly. It's actually based on valuable information.
So you were actually getting your clients from that sort of really engaged one-on-one conversations, and then once they trust you, you retain them as a client, and then you sort of build out your content, so to speak, around the value that you are providing to your clients.
Exactly. I will go, like, I'm just gonna reveal all the secrets, but once you do that, then you start building content, and 50% of teaching is being interested in what you're gonna teach. So if you're not interested, it's just going to be an awful time. And that's why I've kind of stopped doing some stuff, because I just didn't want to teach the same basic, let's build a CRUD app in Ruby, let's build a CRUD app. I just thought it was extremely boring versus the more interesting stuff of building a company, building a project, building an end-to-end project. But basically, the step in the middle is that instead of selling the course on Udemy, you will also just sell consultation calls, which will do just the Calendly link type stuff. And so once you understand those three levels of the pyramid, the 101, the Calendly for prospecting, and then the course for getting new business, then you understand that the free stuff is basically the fourth level. But again, you're doing 4 jobs at once, which I would call leverage or stacking your skills. But you wouldn't do that from day one, because you have on day one you have no skills, no knowledge, no customers. You're starting from nothing. So you really don't want to make it more difficult, because I guess what you learn in trying the other approach of starting from content first is that you could have just asked one person if they wanted your business, and that would have been enough. Instead, you basically asked 1,000 people the same question, and then you have all these percentages, all these loops that are really needless. So I think once you suffered enough, you stop with the idea that you need to build a pyramid, and you just go for the 101 first.
Mm, that's a super interesting approach. I haven't really heard anyone else describe it like that. Did you figure out all this stuff on your own, or did you learn it from somewhere?
No. Yeah, I was. I have. Actually, it's an interesting story because basically in 2019, I decided to go to America and meet kind of my mentors, like people that I will watch courses of. And I basically went into like these conference rooms and I quote unquote got scammed. I just gave them whatever they sold me, I just bought it. Bought course on sales, course on presentation, course on like emotional trauma, whatever. Just whatever you sell me, I'm gonna buy it. And basically, I just got taught all of that stuff by actually what, and I kept going to their events so that I would learn how they were selling to other people, and so that's how I learned. And then I took like serious coaching, like thousands of dollars worth of coaching. And even if I disagreed with everything they taught me, and I would just tell them, "I think you're wrong. I'm not gonna do what you tell me." I still took those type of lessons so that I could at least have my opinion. And so now I'm at a point where I have my own opinion as to how I want to do things. And and I guess I have the luxury of knowing whether it's the best idea or just a mediocre idea. And I'm just going, and I guess I'm choosing what is more interesting to me because, there's a point where it doesn't really matter if you get, one extra customer or not. It's a lot more interesting if you kind of find something that engages you or something that challenges you and keeps you stimulated. So I'm the survivorship bias person that will tell you that you should actually get a mentor and pay them. And if you actually do what they tell you, you're going to learn something. And then you after you're done with that, you went through the fire, you disagree, you just do your own thing. But at least that way you're going to try something. So that's what I did. I tried a lot of stuff and I just took a lot of mentorship. And I'm really grateful for it.
Nice. So you developed your business skills and also your technical skills. Did you develop your technical skills sort of concurrently, or did it come one after the other?
Yeah, no, my starting point was always mostly technical, and basically it's like, you can call bullshit on what I'm gonna say, but like, the way I felt the financial crisis of 2008 was that there were no jobs. Like the only job I could get maybe was like we call it a pizza pony, where you just have a moped and you deliver pizzas. And that was not gonna work. So I just went on Odesk at the time, which is called Upwork now. And I just started selling marketing services because I had my own squash blog. I would do my own little videos and get a few views and sell my ebook. So I had an understanding of keywords and understanding of stuff. And I just started selling gigs. And so I was actually just a marketer online, just trying to get some jobs. Like I even got a awful job. Like, when they do the tweet of, this is my first job. Like my first job was like writing a belt buckle keyword optimized article for like $2, like actual crap job. Just get me something, give me 5 stars so I can get a job in this type of platform because I need a reputation. And so from that I got maybe a keyword optimization, like kind of espionage, where I had to message different businesses and ask them questions and then send them back, like this weird stuff. And from that, I learned about keyword optimization, and I just started selling that as a service. And then eventually, I had to build a HTML email, and I was so frustrated, so pissed off with building the email, and I still am. I still hate making emails. That I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go and learn about programming. I'm gonna learn how to make websites, and I watched CS50, which I still recommend to this day. Probably the greatest course online there ever is. It's like CS50, incredible course. And once I watched that, I was so passionate, I decided to actually study computer science. And so that's kind of how I went from, I guess not knowing what to do to actually saying, okay, I'm going to learn this, and I'm sure something good will come out of it.
So that was around 2008, and it was really like a symptom of not really having much opportunities that drove you down this path. Did you go to university at all?
Yeah, it took a while for me. I think I went back to I don't remember when. Maybe it was 2015 when I went back to university. I tried to do my own stuff for a while, and then what happened? The reason why I'm again survivorship bias to the end is through this gig economy. I actually found a mentor, or you could call it like a boss or whatever, but a person that decided to mentor me. And they basically continuously gave me business where they're like, okay, we need to build this website. I know you don't know how to use WordPress or whatever. Go figure it out. I'm going to give you some money and we'll see if the website is good. And so for doing that, we actually ended up building WordPress websites. And then I ended up making a actual e-commerce it was like a cannabis business. I basically built them like a full back end, full front end, and that was done with Next.js, with a decent CMS on the back, so like actually good technology. And so I kind of was lucky enough to find, in this case, a client, and then I found a bunch of others, but basically people that were willing to let me learn something while paying me. And so that's kind of how it kept going. If we talk about how I got into Web3, it's basically the same story where I knew how to build, the base greeter contract in 2017. So I got some merit and I could be the UI for it. I put it on my profile on Code Mentor, and then I just got a random call by a guy called Shane, who's the founder of Polymarket. And he's like, I need somebody to help me build a website. Can you do it? And I just sold the shit out of him. And I told him I'm going to just try my best and blah, blah, blah. And he trusted me, and we built the first version of it. And then I got passionate with Web3, and that's kind of how I rerolled. But my career has been really that if you kind of are enough, if you just ask enough people and you're honest about it, you're like, I know how to do it, but I haven't done it. Some people will eventually give you a chance, and then if you fuck up, you just refund them. And that's basically my business strategies. You're unhappy, I'm just gonna refund you. I don't want to deal with any drama, whatever. But if you're happy to work with me, I'll try my best. Basically, I'll try and be honest. And most people, some people want the person that only does thing X, and that's why branding that way is really useful. Where you're like, I only do invariant testing, and so a person knows exactly what they're doing. And then some other people, they don't really care about the brand, they just care about the trust. And so once you establish the trust, and every time you have a problem where you can't solve it, you let them know, and you basically figure it out. Most entrepreneurs know that that's foundation of building a business. So you never lose customers. They work with you forever, basically, until you're bored of the niche and you just decide to change. That's how you lose customers, because you get bored, I guess, and you want to do something new.
Nice. So your career is just pull yourself up by the bootstraps and do self-learning, go out there and grind, get the clients. Yeah, it's very, very independent.
Yeah, I mean, I go through the ups and downs of it. I actually wanted to ask you about the RuneScape story. I wanted to hear a little bit more about it, because I'm sure RuneScape has like guilds where you do group stuff, and I feel like because I did the same thing with World of Warcraft, so I really want to hear your story and I'll tell mine. But basically, that's what happens is when the market is really ripe and it's like the bull market, you do a thing called the GDKPs, which means that I'm gonna just bullshit everybody. I'm going to tell them that we're going to do the run. I'm going to put a spreadsheet online and people sign up. And then I'm going to handpick the people that are going to allow it. And I'm going to have to do, backroom deals to get the best tank, the best role, people that are going to actually make the run happen, so that I can offer a service and get a cut. And that's like a virtual thing that you can do. And that's the same thing in freelancing is when everybody needs help, like the AI craze. I'm sure you can sell, GPT front ends where you literally just talk to the API and just do the UI, and you can sell it for a shit ton of money because there's froth in the market. There's people that need to fundraise. They have tight deadlines. They need to impress the investors. And then other times you kind of regret it because when there's a drought in the video game, you basically cannot do the raid because there's not enough people, and the people that you have are going to wipe you and you're going to fail. And then the same thing happens with the business, that when there's a drought, you just get no business. I'm lucky enough that I'm interested enough in this industry where if I had zero work, I would probably just create my own work. I would just start building my own tool. So I found something that works for me, but it's kind of the reality of the market is like there's a lot, especially when the market is growing, like you always are best off never settling in a way and just keep kind of riding the high. And then one day eventually you're going to regret it, but you're still better off kind of, or you're still good, well off enough in just kind of riding it out, I guess.
Right. So would you say your skills from talking to people and sort of organizing these backroom deals, did you learn that from playing World of Warcraft as a kid?
I don't think so. I basically I went back and played the TBC Classic, basically the relaunch, and I just found myself that I was so interested in like playing the auction house, and I was actually looking into arbitrages on I don't know, Polygon or Mainnet, like, and I just drawn the comparison that like you learn about slippage by trying to buy all of the auction house because the price goes up, and then I noticed about I had kind of this this kind of tainted idea that playing World of Warcraft when I was young was the worst thing I ever did. And then I went and actually played it, and I realized how many skills it taught me. It taught me how to make friends and talk to people. It taught me about getting what I want, because let's say you want the epic item. Now you have to make a group and you actually have to lead it. It taught me about basically the politics of it, because some guilds, they don't let you in unless you basically do backroom deals. Other guilds are more open or whatever. And so I basically played all of it during the bull market, and I was basically doing my own GDKPs, and I just had a great time there. And I thought there was a lot of parallels between what you can do in crypto, where it's like it's all real and it's very real, but it's also like kind of this fantasy world where people get mad or they go crazy about this virtual money. And then you watch like a level 70 mage lose the role on a trinket called SCB, which basically gives you more mana. And they basically they know that they wasted 3 months of their lives because they lost that role. And like, trust me, those people are gonna be more pissed than the people that lost money. And then you're like, maybe it's actually the same thing. It's just we framed it a little differently. So I just think it was a very it's super engaging, but I also feel like it was a great kind of way to learn some skills, or at least it kind of points towards the interest. And so maybe if as a person you like this type of MMORPGs, then you're probably going to fit into crypto as well, because there's kind of a connection there.
Yeah, so that's super interesting way to describe it. I wouldn't say when I played RuneScape and MMORPGs as a kid, I went as deep into the social aspects as you described in World of Warcraft. You're completely right in terms of it teaches you how to talk to people and that. But how about the real life aspect of socializing? Because if you spend a lot of time online, then your real life social skills gets pretty stunted, I would say. And honestly, for me, I didn't really resolve that aspect for myself until I was like in my 20s or something. So how did you sort of approach that aspect?
I'm just gonna say that I should have written a book called Hostel Therapy. And what I did is I would work remotely, and I just would, instead of living in a house, I would just go live in a hostel. That's what I did. So I would just live in a hostel, and you're forced to be around people. You have no privacy. When people you despise, they're gonna be gone in 2 days. So you just treat them. You learn how to deal with conflict. And if there's people you like, you enjoy, you have experience with, or you share a part of your life together. And so that's what I did. I just took the shock therapy solution. I'm like, fuck it. I'm just gonna go live in a hostel. And I did that maybe for 9 months, traveling around Europe and then traveling to America and South America. And once you do that, I feel like you become unafraid of most stuff. Although, and I guess what I will say there is this type of line of work does engage a different part of your brain, so it does take some time to get out of the kind of a more, let's say, transactional mindset. But once you do something like what I described, you will forever keep in your memory that after like 2 or 3 days that you stop working so much, you become a normal person again. So it's something that you have to prove to yourself. But once you do, you realize that like the superpower is being able to handle this pressure. It's not being normal. Being normal is the default. You just forget if you stop touching grass for too long.
So would you say being a freelancer is more suited towards your personality than just having a normal job?
Yeah, I honestly I don't know. I just feel like there's like these and these are like I'm aware of how psychopathic some of the things I'm gonna say are, but I'm just gonna say them. But basically, like every 2 years, the winning strategy in a job is that every 2 years you're gonna basically threaten to leave to get a raise. That's the reality. That's what everybody does on LinkedIn. Like most people are more diplomatic about it than me, but that's basically what they do. They go from, I don't know, Goldman Sachs into Ernst Young, into whatever, and every 2 years they just do it to negotiate a raise. And that's why vesting exists in like startups, so that they can basically golden handcuffs you into the startup. That's literally why this stuff exists. But if you're a freelancer, well, let's say after 3 months I'm tired of an industry, I'm just gonna leave. So I think that's why it's a lot more interesting, especially if you start with where I started, where I basically was just able to like build a website or just use WordPress or like these low level skills. And then I built my own confidence. I built my own resources, my own even just like it sounds a little weird, but like the ability of, let's say I want to get a course and spend $1,000. There's a lot of people that in their life, they're never gonna ever buy a course for $1,000 because for a million of reasons. But like I'm at a point where I know that I'm okay with it. Even if it helps me by like 1%, I'm just gonna throw the money because it avoids having to basically go through, collecting the info or just struggling. And so I guess my point was it basically gives you that flexibility that you don't have even at a job. And so from my experience, it always worked really well. And I've definitely regretted not applying to jobs, and I received very cool offers in my lifetime where I was like, fuck yeah, this is an amazing offer. But I've also just as much regretted staying in a job for too long. And so from my experience, if it's win-win to be a consultant, it's almost always better for both parties, because the second you're done with the passion, because the passion means you're also going to work more. So once the passion is gone, though, you're just going to do your 8 hours, and now it's no win-win for either party. And so why do we need to stick around for 2 years because there's a contractual obligatory whatever? Let's just cut it short, and we can be adult about it. So I think that's why I end up preferring it. It's just the freedom and I guess the hunger also helps you learn more. Where if I knew I had this job, I wouldn't necessarily push myself to learn more. And so I guess I can tell you how I re-rolled into Web3, which I think was a great... it's something that I taught, by the way. I taught it to a few people through BadgerDAO. But basically, what I did is I didn't have a job. I didn't have any money. I had the Code Mentor option and the course option. I stopped that. I closed my course. I closed my Code Mentor. I basically was like, on Code Mentor, I'm going to charge 3 times more money, and I'm only available on Tuesdays and Fridays. And then I never took any appointment. Basically, left it to die. And I did only hackathons. And the first time I did hackathons, I was so full of hubris. I did the Chainlink hackathon. I think it was 2021. I don't remember. But I did the Chenik hackathon. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna win free prizes. I'm gonna just crush everybody. I'm gonna crush these fools. And then I basically did some crappy project. I was really bad, and I lost, and I didn't win anything. And that's when I realized that I needed to step up and improve my skills. And so I prepared for the next hackathon, and this time I only took one bounty, one challenge, and that's kind of how I built my skill. Because I instead of going the route of I'm gonna half-ass it, I'm gonna see how it goes, I was like, no, I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna win this hackathon, and if I don't win it, it means that I made a mistake, and I'm gonna try again until I stop making mistakes and I start winning. And that's what I did, and I think I won an Aave prize, I won a Polygon prize, I won the Badger prize, and that's kind of how I got to work with Badger. It was because basically I had decided to do this hackathon until I started winning, and then when I won big, the Badger contest was the hackathon that I won big. And that's why if people ask me how to get a job, I just tell them do projects until people just are forced to hire you, because your contribution is so valuable. They basically pay you bounties all the time. You're going to get hired in no time. It's going to be a no-brainer for them.
Nice. That's an incredible story. So obviously you were pretty successful on Code Mentor and living your freelance life with all the freedom that it offers. Why did you just suddenly one day decide to close all that down and jump into Web3? Did you really believe in the industry, or you were just super interested in the technical aspects? Like, what made Web3 so interesting for you?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that in spite, it's like I have to kind of give the caveat that like I am successful at what I do, but I also have worked very long hours for a very long time. So maybe we can have this same conversation in a few years when I'm like settled down and I work 4 hours, 8 hours a day, and I will give you a very different answer. But the main interest that I had was that it was like a circle of skills where I just keep going around all of these different skills. And so in contrast to making a website, let's say I want to make a website. I did the Daily Warden because I didn't make a website for like 2 years. I wanted to make a quick website. But like if you just make websites, you're only doing the presentational side of a job. And so that only gives you so much at a technical level. If you build a database or like a backend, you're doing like this networking stuff or like this complicated optimization stuff. But again, it's only like a type of a puzzle. Whereas with this field, you always have all of the puzzle. You have the optimization, you have the presentation, you have the security, you have the math, you have the simulations. And so that's what I found is that I can get very tired of writing code, but maybe it's like my tank for more economical stuff goes back up, and now I want to do that. And then I get really tired of the math, and now I just want to attack some protocols. And so I go and do that. And then I get tired of that, and then I just build tools for that. And so that's what happens with this field. It's so nascent, so interesting, so unique. And you have the ability as a solo person to really be able to understand the majority of it and have that level of agency that is just super rewarding. So that's what I found, that I wanted to do a Udemy course on development for Ethereum. And after I had enough material for that, I just had so many more open questions, and I was so interested that I was like, why would I do the course, make some money and teach that when I can learn this? And then I started to see other engineers, incredible people, incredible engineers, and like, why are they kicking my ass at the engineering level? Like, why are they so much better than me? And the answer is because they put more time. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm not gonna teach. I'm just going to try and become the best I can at that. And then once I get bored, I'm going to go back to something else. And I guess I never got bored. I'm yet to get bored of it.
Right. So it was the tech stack and how diverse it is that drawn you into this industry. Closing everything down you must have took a hit financially in terms of that. How long did it take for you to sort of get into Web3 for real and start to see some results from your efforts?
Yeah. That's a like I would like to follow up, but that's a diplomatic answer. But like I'm pretty sure it took me maybe a month. Like I was lucky enough that in working, like let's say I worked a 12-hour workday, so like I work like a maniac, and I divide my day in three chunks of 4 hours. The way I transitioned was I will do maybe 4 hours of consulting with the people that I already had as client on Code Mentor, so those were guaranteed. And then the other 4 hours that I would spend prospecting, I lost because I stopped doing that and I would study. And then the last 4 hours, maybe I will do something that will pay me in Web3. So for me, it was fairly painless because I basically had two logs or like two cars moving at the same speed, and I kind of tweaked it until I could just jump. And so maybe I lost a month of money, but I didn't have any particular struggle because at the time the alpha before you was Code Mentor, and then you made that popular. But the alpha before I did it was hackathons on Gitcoin and hackathons on ETH Global. Very few people participated. The few people that did were good, but there was a lot of room to make it work. And so once I kind of knew the I guess my goal, it was fairly achievable. And then the main advantage with all this tech being open source is that whatever you build, you can reuse. Like I can build a Next.js template and then I can reuse it. And so by doing that, it just become more effective. So it wasn't painful to me. It was fairly painless, given that I work 12 hours a day. So it was painless because I have this proclivity of understanding when I need to push hard and when I can take it back.
Yeah, so you pretty much work like a maniac, and your flexibility around the freelancing allowed you to transition pretty painlessly. Now, I guess people with normal jobs, they can potentially transition by just studying after work, and eventually once they get good enough, then transition into a full-time job. That's what I did. Would you say that's not a good approach? I would say
no, though. I would recommend doing it in the morning. That's what I would change. Because from my experience, like let's say you have 3 rounds of focus. The morning, the afternoon, and then after dinner or whatever. Like if you're gonna do that later in the day, your willpower, your focus, your ability to learn is so much smaller that if you instead you wake up an hour earlier and you do it early in the morning, from my experience, that's gonna help you a lot more. So that's what I would change, is that if you like, and you did it, and you may be an average person or an exceptional person, and I would lean towards saying that that's more of an exceptional sacrifice of doing that after work. Whereas I feel like it's more realistic to try and do it before work, where you are top of the morning, top of the energy, top of the focus, because otherwise you're really stacking all of the odds against you. Like you're already miserable from work, maybe you had a commute, now you're going back to work at home. That's too much. I would recommend doing it early in the morning.
Yeah, that's really good advice, I think. When I was studying after work, I literally couldn't study the topics that were related to work, because then it would just feel like work. So it was lucky that I was working in cybersecurity as a penetration tester. I wouldn't be testing the same stuff as Web3 after work. So it was sort of related, so it kept things interesting, but also different. That's what made it not feel like work for me personally.
Yeah, and when you do like more traditional security research, is it a little bit more like being in the lab where you have like your tools they run and then they send you stuff? Or is it still like a focused effort, and so you basically at the end of it, your brain is mush because you're still having to focus a lot on really dense code bases?
I would say it's pretty similar to just Web3 security reviews, but the engagements were a lot shorter and they were more standardized, I would say, because so I guess in a way, because it's more standardized, you don't need to use as much brain power compared to like reviewing smart contract code, for example, because you're most of the time you're following a playbook, you're running tools. You are almost doing the same thing over and over again, at least in the beginning of the engagement, until something interesting pops up, and then you would dig deeper on that aspect. So I found like traditional penetration testing a lot more repetitive compared to Web3 security reviews.
Yeah, what I'm noticing now that I'm using a little more automated tools is something that I saw because I did like a stage in. Cause I used to like my high school would actually have you do laboratory stuff for chemistry, biochemistry, like actually interesting stuff, like all of the basics of chemistry, etc. that you will learn in university. They would actually have you do it in the lab, and so when you do that type of lab stuff. There's a lot of waiting, and so your work day basically becomes how to quickly set up the machine so that the wait time is like it's comfy, but at the same time the wait time is not gonna delay you too much, and then you basically relax. And so what I've noticed with manual reviews is that, which are a lot similar to being an artisan, is like when you stop working, nothing happens. Whereas if you set up something like invariant testing or automated, like some automated tooling, the interesting stuff is the work that you have to do is a lot more dense when you do it, but then there are these periods of pause where the tool is doing the thing, and then you basically can rest. And so what I found very interesting is that it becomes a lot more like this, where it's like super intense, super high level, three-dimensional thinking, and then it's like, okay, I'm just gonna wait now. I'm not gonna do more manual work because now my brain is literally mush. I can't handle that, and I'm just gonna relax and let the machine do the work for me. And that's really interesting how you can be extremely successful in just doing manual review, and at the same time, perhaps in the future you could be extremely successful in just reviewing some stuff that is found by automated machines that find you the salient findings.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I wonder if just doing manual review over and over again for years is going to burn someone out. I mean, I haven't felt that myself personally yet. I feel the engagements are still pretty generous in terms of time frame, especially at an auditing firm. The time frames are longer than audit contests, that's for sure, and you get people to work with as well. So, like the pressure is not that full on. I feel at a audit firm, but I do wonder after a long period of doing that, it might be pretty prone to burnout because, as you said, your brain needs to constantly be on, or else nothing happens. That's a pretty interesting way to describe it.
So what I've noticed with contests is that I guess there's like the grass is always greener effect, where recently we saw this $20,000 finding for an uninitialized proxy, and I feel like once something like that happens, people are just gonna start grinding contests again, because the only way I can explain that happening is that everybody kind of was going to burn out because they were doing too many contests. And they decided which one to optimize for, and they all optimized for the same one, which is an interesting piece of consideration for contests in general. And in doing that, the few people that were still more, let's say, more structured, they will do the contest with some sort of a structure. They will do a contest that most people will skip. They ended up finding this type of stuff. And I feel like it always ties back to the idea of EV. I borrowed that from people playing blackjack, where if you play blackjack long enough, you're guaranteed to get the EV of your actions. And the same thing happens in security research, where if you just compete long enough, maybe you're going to get a judge to disqualify you. Maybe you're going to get a judge that hates you, but one day maybe the judge make a mistake in your favor, and then over enough of a long time, that normalizes to your actual EV, to your actual skill. And so I feel like there's something to be learned there, where I think contests show that maybe the EV of an 80% quality audit is actually a lot higher than what it's priced, whereas perhaps a 100% audit is almost priced fairly. And so I guess that's the interesting dynamic that we'll see in the, let's say, traditional versus contest deal, is that if I asked you every week to review the same copy-pasted staking contract and get it done in like, 3 days, and it's basically the same and it just changes the name of the token, you will probably get burned out. You would basically hate your life because it's so uninteresting. So you still need to be, you still need to have attention to detail, but it's so boring that it would just be uninteresting. And yet the contest model works really well there because there's always somebody that is going to, because of the EV, there's always going to grind that out. Whereas when it comes to the, let's say, the excellent, the white gloves treatment of like, start to finish, report, help, etc. That's something that the EV is actually lower in doing it in a contest, of being too generous with your time, being too helpful. And so I guess that's where a more traditional approach wins, because you get that guided process versus a crush therapy, right? You want to get your dreams shattered, do a contest. You want to build up your ambition, build up your skill, build up your code base, do a guided process with a company. Because that's really where the fine line is in kind of how the value is generated.
That's interesting how you describe it. I guess from your background as a freelancer, you look at everything in terms of EV, even when comparing to working at companies versus just doing things by yourself.
I mean, I've learned from you guys, like, I guess I'm just giving back, but I feel like some of the podcasts you did, I've listened a lot of times, like many times. And I learned a lot about my process by basically finding the 30 seconds out of the podcast that really matters. Because I guess this is like actual good life advice, but it's like they say the master will appear when the student is ready. But what that truly means is that you can read the same book 100 times, and based on the state of your own mind and the state of your own life, you're gonna find different advice in the same book. That's really what it means. So the idea of listening to the podcast while doing my own security research was that perhaps I'm in a different mood, and now I get this very short idea. It's like 2 lines that to you means nothing, but to me, that's the next step. That's the next angle. That's like a new consideration. And so I guess I'm just giving it back. And I think most of the top researchers in general, or entrepreneurs, or people that have that kind of mindset, they definitely think about that. And I guess the way you would formalize it as a investor is called asymmetric upside. That's what they call it, but it's the same thing. Is that you're gonna do things that, yes, can go wrong, but if they go wrong very by not that much. Whereas if they go right by a lot. And an example will be, trying a new niche, or perhaps trying a social media, even starting a podcast is something that, if it goes well, it can change your life. If it goes poorly, you're gonna waste a few hours of your life and maybe get laughed at work, I guess. You're gonna have a story to tell. And so it's really that. It's I'm putting my own words to something that I think is taught in different paths of life.
Well, I appreciate all the advice you've given on this podcast. You've definitely given some spicy takes and interesting advice. And people listening to this, if they listen to it over and over again, I'm pretty sure they're going to get some good insights from it.
I hope so. I guess I'm going to say another thing that I've noticed. And I guess that's kind of the type of challenges that I face are like related to being a mentor and having students. Where like at this point I basically give coaching for free. It's not like if you message me and ask me for help, I'm not even gonna reply, or I'll literally tell you to fuck off. Like I'm gonna be honest about it. But what I found is that if I find people that like they actually have put big effort and they basically need an opportunity, I am morally compelled to help them, because that's what happened to me. We call it pay forward, I guess. You just have to pay it forward. And so the biggest advice I would give to these people is you really want to show that you put the effort, and then you want to ask something that enriches the other person's life. In my case, I like talking. So just show me that you're actually going to implement the stuff, and I'm going to help you more. And so what I typically do with a bunch of people, maybe one day they're going to quote me or say, thank you, Alex. But basically, I just give them the next task, and then I stop replying. And then they have how much time they want. It could take them months or whatever. But until they do what I ask them to do, I'm basically done helping them. Whereas if they do the task, which could be, I don't know, set up your own proof of concept on Foundry, like set up your own setup, or compete in a contest and then talk back to me, or something like that. Once they do that, then I'm going to continuously give them the next step. Because what I found is that many people say they need help, but very few people are putting in the effort to receive it. And the few people that are putting the effort and then ask, they are going to implement everything you tell them. Like, you don't even need to tell them that they should be implementing it. They're just going to do it themselves. And they really are going to have a better life. And so I think to those few people that do that, you'll see that there are no closed doors. Just ask, you'll receive. And then to everybody else, you want to kind of find the explanation as to whether you're not trying hard enough because you don't want to, or you're not trying hard enough because you believe that it's like cool not to. It's like I've rarely saw like successful people say that they succeeded at something where they also didn't fail at it. Because as they say, if you didn't fail at something, it means you haven't tried hard enough. That's the reality.
Yeah, nice. That's some really great advice. I think I've been overall too generous with my time in terms of people DMing me asking for advice. I respond to almost all of them, and as you say, most of the people don't actually do the action that you tell them to. So yeah, I'm probably going to start to go with your approach from now on.
Yeah, I will go as far as to just have like a Notion file with like the first task. Just have the underline and the name. You just replace the name. You're like, first task, talk to me in a month. If you don't come back, whatever. That was the opportunity. Because that's kind of the reality of it. Is it's something you learn in business. Is like we all are unique, but in aggregate, like what we want is not even that unique. It's like we do have our own story, we do have our own experiences. But like if I go to the store, I want to buy food. Like we all need to buy food. So it's like under a certain lens, you feel like your story is unique. And then under another lens, you realize there's 100 people that want the same opportunity. And so you basically want to, I guess, stack those cards in your favor. And, what I've really noticed though is that it gets easier over time, because like if you, and the funny thing is if you search well enough, you'll find everything I did online, like from skateboarding montages, YouTube coaching, Strappy courses, Code Mentor stuff. And so you'll see the different layers and different efforts, and they all are related to your own self-confidence, where like I look at some of these companies telling me they want to settle people on Mars, and I'm like, you know, like you're like, I don't even know what to say. I'm like, I wouldn't ever give you money. I feel like you're just scamming me. You're giving me too much of a dream. Whereas maybe like if you're just starting out, your first step is just compete in a contest. It's like, don't think about it. Just compete in a contest, see what happens. And now you have some feedback. And once you start to go through this loop of the feedback and your own, even your own self-confidence, that's when you can actually have realistic goals. Because, you know, we all want to have, you know, be the richest person of the earth. We all want to be, you know, 30 on Forbes, either for the right or the wrong reason. But like we all want to have these stupid achievements. But the reality is like you want to start with achievements that are realistic, and then you want to stretch yourself. And so I guess that goes back to flow. But I think you can really watch what I did, where I'm really underwhelming in what I sell. And then I'm just surprising when I actually deliver, because that's how it works for me. Because I feel like that's kind of how I made it, or how I made my own path, was try and find the next goal. Is it achievable? Do I believe I can? I'm gonna go for it, and then I keep going. And you eventually find people that support you with that, and that's when the sky is really the limit. But it's not because you can actually go on the sky. It's because you can build a ladder, and then you can make a ladder that is taller.
Nice. That's super good advice. Just taking a step back, I mean, obviously people who watch this content want to get into auditing, and they're into grinding out contests and that kind of stuff. Do you think as an industry, the auditing spaces are getting a bit too crowded, and perhaps people should consider things like hackathons and becoming a dev instead?
Yes, quit now. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, that's what I will say publicly is just quit, give us more room. But the reality is that I feel like the last 3 months. So first of all, I had this thinking 9 months ago, because the way you want to look at this entire space is you want to look at funding, as in funding of new projects, because new projects will eventually build a product and they need to be audited. And so if you're thinking about what's happening now and you're not looking at what happened 9 months ago, you basically should not have the conversation. You probably should look at the industry you're in, because you're like a leaf in the wind. But what's happening is a kind of a natural consequence of the fact that there's a little less funding. And I believe the 9 months ago, it was like the worst instance of funding in like the last 10 years for venture capital, for crypto, etc. And so it's a very natural that you have a contraction at that level. And so I'm gonna say, because I feel like this gets too opinionated, but it also gets to a little too alpha. What I would say is go and decide for yourself in terms of the usage of the platform and in terms of the projects. Do you still see projects building? Are those projects going to do audits? If yes or no, then that's your answer. Are there new projects coming in, and do they need audits? Because if you believe that the current situation, which I believe is extremely sustainable and fair, so if you believe that the situation is going to get worse, then you should consider alternative options. But if you believe that this is almost as close to the worst that it can get, where you have 10 projects that survived, that raised tens of millions of dollars, and those people still need security, then obviously it's going to be a fight to maintain that business. We will all be fighting to keep the business and retain it. But at the same time, if you have a more optimistic approach, then you're basically looking at this as a natural consequence. And then at the same time, we've had literally 2 days ago a bunch of tweets about the market is over, and now we have like 5 different contests on Code Arena. So I feel like you don't want to have an opinion until maybe 6 months from now, and then you also want to kind of make your own determination as to whether the space will bounce back from here or if there's more downside.
And would you like to share your opinion on what you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I guess I'm not going to give you, I mean, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to give you the things I watched was, like, if you look at DeFi Llama, that's what I watched. I watched DeFi Llama and I watched the TVL basically die. And I watched the price of all projects go to a 10th. And then I watched the TVL of DeFi Llama go down by a third. So it still went down, or actually 2/3. So it still went down by a lot, but at the same time it didn't go down as much. Then I look at the gas prices. Do we have one way gas prices? Does nobody want to use Ethereum? Of course people want to use Ethereum. What are the gas prices on L-Choose? Did you see all the stuff pop up? Did you see the millions of dollars being made on stuff like Frentech? Because to me, there is still a lot of people using it, and those people never live, are not going to live. And then there's all these projects that are not going to live, that raised hundreds of millions of dollars in the previous bull market. And so I will call this I can't say economically this is going to be the bottom, because of some weird stuff that happens when the Fed capitulates. So there's always a chance that we go lower, but on a technical level, the projects that are building are here, and I don't see them closing for any particular reason. So I'm not as pessimistic there, and I would almost question those that are, and tell them that if you don't believe this is gonna work, you probably shouldn't be here. But it's because you not only don't have the conviction, you're probably not even using the products, which I think is a shame. Something I always tell my friends, because none of my friends use crypto, because it's impossible even to explain to them, like, okay, you're gonna go on Coinbase on mainnet and then send your money on Polygon and then bridge to Metis, and then you're gonna LP and you're gonna farm the token and you're gonna receive the bribes. And they're like, bro, just do it for me. And I'm like, no, bro, it's non-custodial. I can't do it for you. You have to do it. And so it's basically impossible. But like if you still use this stuff and you understand it, then you know that people are using it, and you know that people need this type of assistance, this type of consultation. There is always the underlying fear of being replaced by, by Foundry++ that is going to find 80% of all our findings. That's something that is going to happen. But I feel like once you've kind of switched enough, I literally already have the backup plan, at least for me. So I'm confident. Like I'll tell you what the backup plan is. It's hilarious.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was watching this YouTube video of the McDonald's POV, like people working on McDonald's. And I know it sounds odd, but like it's actually really engaging. Like you have people making fries. There's the beep of the fries. You have to lift it up. You have the system. It's actually a remarkably engaging experience to watch it. And I thought, okay, what if we just made a video game where you actually have to work at McDonald's? And I'm like, bro, that's going to be the most popular gaming city ever. It's like the It's So Over video game. So I already have the backup plan, and I'm not worried because I'm kind of following my passion as well. So the money is important. The money is like the score, but at the same time, the engagement that you get is more than just the money. And so I feel like there's still a lot of engagement here. There's still a lot of hacks that happen all the time. Still a lot of really dumb mistakes that we're doing. So there's a lot of people that still need a lot of help. So I don't see it getting worse anytime soon.
Nice. So you have a pretty bullish outlook moving forward, and you have a backup plan, so you're all set.
Yeah, I feel like maybe like that could be like a aspiration, but like once you go deep enough, I feel like the last step is to contribute something open source where you could build either like a tool for security research, or you could even go and help Ethereum as at the client level and just build a thing. Because the reality is these are non-trivial challenges that like you not only have to be really smart to solve them, but you actually have to understand what's going on at a very deep level. And it's very satisfying to solve these puzzles for a living. And so I think that's like if you have that type of attitude, you're gonna be a lot more optimistic. Where maybe Code Arena shuts down tomorrow. They call it, everything is done. Well, maybe there's still bug bounties. Okay, all bug bounties go down. Well, I'm still using all the projects, so it's still fun. I can still talk to them. Maybe they still are gonna tip me or whatever. And maybe that goes down as well. And at that point, if everything goes down, like I guess we'll just go in a different niche. But I think the learnings you had in being here, in being, I guess, part of the gold rush, surviving that, understanding who sold the shovels, understanding who actually was digging and surviving, I feel like they make you a better professional, and they're tools that are going to help you for the rest of your life, or at least the rest of your career.
Yeah, 100%. I feel a lot of the skills in Web3 are definitely transferable into other industries. That's why I didn't have too much hesitation jumping in, because I knew that the technical skills that I would be learning through code review is definitely going to be able to transfer, even if this industry just disappears one day. I do want to ask about your experience working at Badger and eBTC. I saw recently you've gone through a ton of audits and many layers, and you were heavily involved in that process. Can you sort of describe that process a bit?
Yeah, so there's something, first of all, I'm going to say something meta about it, which is that like it's always very hard to talk confidently about these things, because if we were to get an exploit or we were to make a mistake, it's like, the classic I told you so scenario. So I'm extremely not vocal about it in like on Twitter or stuff, because I feel like to brag about your security practices is like, it just doesn't help. And so I don't know. But in terms of what we did, first of all, we have like a fairly security focused culture at Badger. And the way we built that was when we launched, when I joined Badger, they already had launched a bunch of vaults, mostly related to WBTC and basically farming tokens like on Curve, on Convex, stuff like that. and they basically had a bunch of people consulting them as security researchers. And these were what you would call strategists. And so they were people that were connected to other yield farms. They had a complete understanding of how to gain yield, the risks related to that, and so they would offer consulting that way. And so this goes back to the idea that there are private consultants you will never hear about. They're doing their thing. They don't even call themselves SRs, but they exist. And that was called, I think, the council, the Badger Council, the Security Council. And then I was part of the council as a consultant. And then we basically didn't have enough support because we were making changes like every week and we had to have more reviews. And so we started by hiring some more junior researchers, a couple of them. One of them joined Aave later. Another one found a bug in Solidly for $200,000. So like people that are actually really smart. And we all hired them through hackathons actually. There's a few videos on YouTube of me explaining how to write a yield farm, a yield strategy. People would submit their yield strategy. If they wrote really well and they had security conscious processes, we would interview them and then give them some work and then eventually hire them. And then we created what is called the Badger Strategies repo, which should be actually open source. It's in the Badger GitHub. But basically the Badger Strategies repo was the process that we followed step by step to review the code base, the first step was explaining back what the code does, which goes against the idea of just saying looks good to me. You actually have to explain to me what the code does so that we're sure we have the same agreement. And then you add more banal stuff such as running the test or writing the test, checking for coverage, and then doing some security stuff, which at the time wasn't fully formalized because Code Arena was nascent, maybe there was no Code Arena, so it wasn't clear. And so I guess through my involvement in Code Arena, I would take a bunch of the reports and put them and share them with the team, and we would have kind of like our own checklist of stuff to check. And then we realized that when we needed more security reviews, we could do a contest. And that's where the CVX contest goes through. We did it in partnership with actually Convex. There was both a Badger pot and a Convex pot. And from that contest, the alpha for a project was get the top wardens and just talk to them privately and just offer them one-on-one engagements. And we had chats with multiple of these wardens. I'm proud to say that I worked with wardens when they basically were novices, and I knew they were killers, and so I would just work with them. And then once they, the job got above their pay grade, they would just stop working with us because they had other opportunities. But like that's a way to find that talent. And so what we did with eBTC was we came into that project knowing about these practices internally. And then we have an internal, let's call it a second party, which will be like a separate small shop that does reviews for us. And it's like, if you go on Code Arena, you probably know who they are. But like we have the top researcher, in my opinion. I guess I'm gonna shield them. It's Watchpug. We work with Watchpug. We just send them everything we change, and we just send it to them, and then they send us reviews. And that's internally. Again, we treat them as if they were part of the team. So every PR they review, every merge they review, so that we get all of that granular feedback. And then once we have enough of a code base and we have a project, we go with the external audit. In the case we published it yesterday, we had the trust team do the first audit. And then we fixed those bugs. We still had some of the spec that was unfinished. So there's some discussion as to whether we should have done that audit that early, because of some really interesting, like once we open source the code, you'll see some really interesting stuff with smart contract wallets, where I built what I call the diamond-like, which is basically a noses contract, where instead of putting the storage in line, you just put it as a diamond pattern. And then you have delegate calls that allow callbacks. So basically it's a smart contract wallet that allows flash loans, or it actually allows custom signatures from custom callers. It's like pretty interesting low-level stuff. But basically I had to shoehorn that in, code it in 2 weeks, and just send it, and they basically broke it, and they found a bunch of stuff because I was rushed to just get that done. And then after that we fixed it, and then we did an audit with Spearbit. And then we're currently in this phase where we're going through some mitigation because of some stuff that will eventually open source, we'll disclose. But that is actually almost related to this model of having this type of CDPs, having sorted lists, etc. And so that's kind of the audit phase. and to me at least, the audit is something that helps you improve the code on one level if there's like some architectural issues. So arguably we should have done that earlier so that they were more part of the design phase. And then as you fix stuff, you do audits as a way to ensure that the bar is met. The tests are there, the code works as spec, and it works. And then something we done later was we did invariant testing. We worked with Antonio. We're going to release a podcast soon about what we did with Antonio Vigiano. And basically we built all of these invariants. We've been running them for months basically. And every time we make a change, we rerun it to make sure that it's compatible. And so that allowed us to add some tweaks later while maintaining that confidence that it was going to work. And then now at this point, we're going to basically wrap everything up, finish the documentation. I know we're going to get like the bot findings from Codarina are going to be this long of all the, the to-do left in the code, because that's just how a project works. It's like, why would I spend a day rewriting that if my code has critical bugs? That's my focus, not the non-critical stuff. And so, but once we're done with that, we'll do the Codarina contest, and then we're gonna open source the fuzzing setup so that we can have people just run it independently. And we're gonna do a guarded launch where, as the guarded launch goes, you're gonna be able to submit coded proof of concepts, and you're gonna have like a bug bounty that grows. And then I believe, because of the fact that we cannot undo eBTC, it's actually, unless, like, even if Chainlink stops working, the eBTC is just going to report the last price and people are going to be able to operate it. So it's actually, we cannot block it, we cannot pause it, it's actually immutable. So we'll probably do an exponential bug bounty where towards the end it's higher so that we have like a stop to stop it. But once it's the bug bounty is over, we're just going to release it, and there's not even going to be a bug bounty. It's just going to be like done. We're going to use the money for the bug bounty as like insurance, where we insure up to that amount. And that's all we can do because, again, we cannot take it back. So all of the work we're doing it early to avoid preventing those extreme scenarios later, because we will not have a mitigation at that point. Our plan is just going to be to have macros to allow people to withdraw fast, having like a one-click delever, close your position instantly, make sure it's on IPFS and it's decentralized and you can use it even if the site is DDoSed. But at the same time, we had to do all of the work early. And so to summarize, internal review, internal audits, contests, and then bug bounties. And that's how we try to do the most complete cheese model possible to make sure that nothing was missed. And if something was missed, it's not going to be life-ruining outcomes. It's just going to be like a rounding error, and we're going to have like a chewy CDP that is going to be there for insurance, and nothing bad is going to happen from that.
That's an incredible security process. Probably the most thorough that I've ever seen in this space. Did any of those reviews or processes, did any of those steps surprise you or turn up with anything that you didn't expect? Yeah,
I think, and maybe one day you should invite up, which is effectively the technical lead at Badger. And I think the most interesting discussion we either will have, but perhaps in a different podcast, is when do you burn everything and rewrite it from zero? That's like the main question that happens to every project, every startup ever. It's like, and I'm going to just give you like my theory, which is based on a video from Ars Technica called War Stories, and it's the story of Crash Bandicoot. And basically my theory is that, like, to do something at the world-star level, or world-class level, you need to basically do it 3 times, because the first time you're doing something that is revolutionary. Go and check the story from Crash Bandicoot. It's an incredible story about how he basically was able to use the CD-ROM to have 64 times the memory. He was able to create all of these animation by compressing them through a custom compressor. And so the same thing is for us. Like I had to write Python simulation after simulation to be able to determine the risk levels and determine the type of whether like a certain premium will cause CDPs to go underwater. We had to create a different mechanism for recovery mode by allowing what we call the grace period, where there's a delay in time, and there's like a full research about the Ethereum consensus, reorgs, the economic costs, and MEV to determine why the grace period is that duration. And so it's rabbit hole after rabbit hole. That once you're done with the first version, you can see all of the imperfection. You can see the crap basically. And but you also know that for us to basically rewrite from scratch is going to increase the surface area, the attack surface, by so much because it's going to invalidate all of the previous work. And so it's always a very difficult decision of when do you basically kill it and rebuild it, or where do you just stick with it. And so this is the world, I guess this is the world in which in, let's say, June of this year, we didn't kill it and we just kept it. And so you're going to see that it still uses the linked list. There is no Merkle proof for the linked list, which is something really interesting that could have been done to compress all the gas and all that stuff. Because ultimately, we, in spite of the criticism of the design, we basically, it's like a ugly building. We placed all of the bombs that we could, and it withstand, and it's still alive. And so we're like, bro, we're not building a better one. We're just keeping this one because it survived all of those attacks. And so that's kind of the philosophy that we went there. And again, we are fully aware that we can't take it back. And that was the point, because eBTC was born from SBF rugging a lot of people, because Badger was also actually a token on FTX as well. And then REN closing, because once FTX rugged, basically was shut down, we realized that REN from REN BTC had all of their money on FTX. And I don't have enough information to have like a sophisticated opinion, but my understanding is SBF failing caused REN BTC to fail because the majority of the server were there, the keys were there, and nobody was able to basically use REN. And now people are telling me that REN still works or some stuff. I still don't get it. But like the fact that the most decentralized token was shut down by FTX is the reason why eBTC exists. Is because we actually were like, bro, let's build something with its flaws, because you can criticize that it's not real Bitcoin or whatever, but let's build something that it cannot be stopped and that it works no matter what. That's the entire point of building a primitive. So let's build a real primitive, not a Mickey Mouse primitive.
Nice. I mean, I'm always saying that DeFi these days, we don't really have real primitives. Yeah, it's pretty incredible that you're building something like this.
Yeah, I look at it from a almost like, again, World of Warcraft point of view. That it's like it was like there was the economic puzzle of giving the MEV incentives, the right incentives to make sure the system works. There's the interesting UX of allowing delegation. We added like this really interesting dynamic where you can have a ZAP, and then if it's a trusted ZAP, at the end of the ZAP can actually deny its own allowance, so that basically it resets, so that you know that a good ZAP will do something and then it will rescind instead of keeping the allowance, so that you can actually have the revoke done by them instead of by you, so that you're safe by default. We had the smart contract wallet as one of the designs, then we had the delegation as another design, and then there's also from an economic point of view, it's a very interesting idea, because you're basically trading the flippening, which is actually really rational. Like if you go and watch what people do on Aave, they basically deposit WST ETH and they borrow ETH, and then they swap the ETH for WST ETH, and they basically trade levered yield on ETH. And some people that are a little more risky, they use WBTC as collateral, and then they borrow ETH and swap it to WST ETH and basically do the same loop. And so effectively what they're doing is they're saying that the beta of the market will grow. They're going to get the STETH yield, which means that you get the staking yield in a levered way. So you don't get, 2-3%, you actually get something more interesting. And then at the same time, they're playing the delta between Bitcoin and ETH with the assumption that ETH will rise. So I believe it has some, it's basically like the second most interesting thing you will do as a let's say, capital allocator. But that said, even from a purely technical point of view, it was extremely engaging as a project. And my main ambition there is that in open sourcing the code and open sourcing the research, this is going to help level that up, because I can speak for myself in terms of what I will do better. Basically, is I have the ability now of building tools that allow to estimate the systemic risk, the upwards DPEG, which is an interesting phenomena that happens with stable coins. Is as liquidations happen, the price raises because more people are doing liquidations and they don't want to take the debt. And so I feel like because of the multi-cyclicality of these skills, where you have the front end, the UX, the security, the economy, and the smart contracts, you can actually at least I can build visualization tools or tools that help better understand that. And in doing that, I believe we are basically putting the conversation forward in terms of what stable coins are and how they should be built and how they can offer guarantees that are not enforced by people, but they're actually enforced by code.
Well, that's fascinating. Well, I really appreciate you coming on to have a chat, Alex. Yeah, such a very alpha-filled conversation, and I think a lot of people will find some interesting points from this.
Thank you for having me, Andy. It was a great time, and I genuinely wish people watching the best. I also want to thank a lot of the people that have shared their own alpha over time. I think it really is, I guess, how the space grows. It's just people sharing a little by little. And, the funny thing is, if we found a way to kind of align the incentives in making sharing better for everybody, we would probably be solving the majority of these issues in no time. It's just at this time, it's more advantageous to keep some stuff to yourself. And so, you want to be grateful to those that do share, because they're sharing the pie for real. So thank you for having me.